Welcome to the Lock Shop with Nielsen and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
Happy Tuesday, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Lock Shop. Nielsen and Hustler here with you, and of course, you can follow us on Twitter at LockShopBets, and make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. We've got you covered on all of your podcasting platforms. Huss, what's up, buddy? How you doing, man?
Oh, Dusty, I'm great. We finally got some beautiful weather around here. It is gorgeous in the peg. I'm quite excited for free agency tomorrow and what's happening around the National Hockey League. And I'll be honest, I'm still on a high from Saturday night, catching big money line bets on a team that never loses. How about that flex from the back-to-back champs? You called the game. That was a statement from a team that a lot of people maybe were thinking that their time has passed. Not so fast.
I was very impressed with what I saw from the Bombers. Like, I've done a lot of Bombers games over the last year and a half, and I don't know if I've seen Zach Collaros play the way he played in that game. Like, his creativity, his ability to get out of the pocket, make plays on the run. The one play where he was like falling down and he still hit Schoen coming back to the ball. I was I was very impressed, buddy. He blew me away. I thought Collaros was automatic on Saturday night. I mean, they get the special teams touchdown. Defense is going to make plays. They dominated every aspect of that football game. It was incredible. It was a great performance.
I mean, from my perspective, maybe the most undercovered part of the entire game was the fact that the Bombers were able to dominate the line of scrimmage and run the football in the first quarter. They had more rushing yards in the first quarter against BC than they did in the entire game against Toronto. And at that point, when you're able to put up 70 or 80 yards in a quarter on a team, it completely changes the way you have to account for the offense. And at that point, Zach Collaros carved them up for the next three quarters. And you mentioned, he was brilliant, named one of the CFL players of the week today, along with the rookie Dalton Schoen, who's
he looks
showing
good.
them what's up. He had 8 catches, a couple TDs. Overall, it was a phenomenal game. And this was a game. There was so many excuses. Remus and I were talking with this, and we always gave it to Paul Maurice. We banned the term time zones on the show because it always seems like they had these self-fulfilling prophecies. Well, this is going to be a real tough road trip, Western time zone. Like, they kind of putting that out. The Bombers had every reason to talk about the short week, the travel from Toronto to Winnipeg to BC. Not even a peep of it. This team is all business. And, you look at the cornerstones of these back-to-back championships, Willie Jefferson, Jackson Jeffcoat, Adam Big Hill, Stanley Bryant, Jamarcus Hardrick, Zach Collaros. That core of a half dozen players all stepped up and played at a championship level. Everybody followed. And hey, listen, BC's good. Rourke still had a few beautiful throws.
He made some plays.
Yeah. But that was a nice little resetting maybe of expectations in the league, reminding everybody that while maybe the first 4 wins of the season weren't in a spectacular fashion, when they need to raise their level of play, they do it. And then, of course, we've got Friday's game. We're going to get to this right away. You're calling it another battle of the unbeatens here in Winnipeg on Friday night.
Yeah, I cannot wait for that game, buddy. I'm very excited for that. So let's dive on. Let's just quickly lay it out. We're going to give you CFL Week 6 here coming up right away. Then we're going to get to the Open Championship. We've got some winners. We've got some other top 10s, top 20s that we'll get to. And then we're going to take a look at what Coolbet's got going on right now for NHL free agency. So there might be some value there as well. So that's all coming up on this episode. But let's dive into it. And we're going to head-to-head in 3 of these games this week, which I really like. There's one game I think that's pretty obvious for pretty clear-cut reasons, so we'll get to that one a little bit later on. But Huss, let's start with Montreal coming off a bye week, a coaching change. Edmonton has traded Arbuckle. It's the Cornelius show again. I don't know what to expect from this game, to be honest with you.
Well, I know one thing to expect, that the Elks are going to stink. It's nice that they got that win, but watching the game last week, this feels like, Remember Ottawa got that ridiculous win against the Elks the beginning of last season?
Yes, I called that one.
Wondering whether they ever won another game. That's basically the way I feel about Edmonton right now. I mean, it can't be a lot of fun to be around that dressing room right now. Chris Jones doesn't seem to have any answers, and there's a revolving door in and around that locker room. And that's a real tough way to win football games against teams that are trying to build game after game. Listen, Montreal, I was a little surprised that Kahari got let go, but it was obvious he was on thin ice coming right into the season. This game opened at 6.5, and I regret not jumping on it immediately because I did think that it would go up. But listen, I mean, I don't know how anything under double digits you can back Edmonton right now until we see something else. And we've seen what's happened now with Cornelius, who wasn't good enough to play before. Now he's their next resort. I mean, listen, I think Montreal is actually pretty good. So this is a perfect get-right spot for them. Get Danny Machocha a nice win in his first game. And it's going to be back to the drawing board, I think, week after week for Edmonton so far this season. Interested to know where your optimism in the Elks is going into this one.
Well, I mean, 2 blowout losses. The loss to the Riders, they were winning with 5 minutes left, let it slip away. They played Calgary very well. Arbuckle threw an interception in the fourth quarter. Bo Levi punches it in, and Calgary wins by 7. And then they beat a Hamilton team that's obviously, I still think, is a little bit better than what their record says so far. So I guess I don't think, like, they've had the 2 blowouts, 2 tight losses, and a win. So is Montreal going to go out and blow them out with Trevor Harris at quarterback? I highly, highly doubt that. And Arbuckle, when given an opportunity here, has been awful. Like, there's a reason that they just gave him away. He threw 8 interceptions in essentially, what was it, just over 3 and a little bit games. Like, I'm surprised Ottawa thinks he's going to come in there and I don't know what they're expecting from him, because I was wrong on Arbuckle. I thought coming in the beginning of the year, I was like, give this guy a chance. I think he can do it, but he doesn't have the arm strength to make the passes that you need to make to be successful in the Canadian Football League. Cornelius, however, has too much arm strength. Like, Cornelius zips the ball in there. And we saw last year, Cornelius started the season, you're like, oh, look, he's a big guy. He moves well. He's got a crazy arm, but his decision-making wasn't good. And then there was a stretch in the middle of the season, 3-game stretch, where Cornelius actually played pretty well. And then they brought in Arbuckle, didn't play him, and made Cornelius start 3 football games in 7 days, and then look down and go, wow, he didn't finish very well. Well, he played 3 football games in 7 days with a horrible team. So I think the quarterback position is better now than it was with Arbuckle at quarterback. I honestly believe that.
Who's the backup for Cornelius now that Arbuckle's gone?
I think it'll be Kai Loxley, who is their slot back, who they brought in to play quarterback last week. And he's more of a mobile quarterback, right? So I also don't know. I don't know where the Alouettes' mindset's going to be with Machocha as their head coach. Because I know a lot of those guys really loved Kahari Jones. And I don't know if there's let's go win one for the new coach. I don't know if that's going to be the mindset there. So I'm going to take the Elks at 7.5. I mean, if it was any smaller, probably not. I don't think they're going to win the game. But I'm going to take the Elks at 7.5 in the Cornelius Harris battle. It was Cornelius who took the job from Harris, or was given the job from Harris, and then Harris moved on. So I am looking forward to that. I think it should be a very interesting game on Thursday night. So I'm okay going head to head with you on that one. Yeah.
Safe to say we're moving up a couple weight classes from the Thursday nighter to the Friday nighter in the Canadian football.
I think so. I was already thinking about it like early third quarter last week. I was like, ooh, I got a battle of Albeatans next week too now, as the Calgary Stampeders very quietly 4-0. I mean, they'd won some close games and everybody said, they're not starting well. They're winning close games. And then they go and they obviously pump the Elks in Edmonton in a weather-delayed mess of a game. And now they get the Bombers, who return home after winning 2 in a row, a perfect 5-0. And, even with the Bombers, it was like, they're winning games, but who are they beating and how are they winning it? And then they go and do what they did to BC. You've got 2 teams coming into this game, Huss, both off of games in which they scored more than 40 points, which I don't think will happen in this game. But where are you going? You're obviously on the Bombers here, minus the 4.
Yeah, listen, I'm really bullish on the Bombers right now. As I kind of said off the top of the program, I really think that was a statement game reminding everybody who the class of the league is. And I think that they'll be ready for the Calgary Stampeders, who they know full well is the closest team to them in the standings without a loss so far in the season. Listen, full credit to Calgary for having the record that they have been. I mean, and they've got there in a strange way. They've come back in a couple games, particularly that Hamilton game where they were down 24-0 and 24-3 at the half. And Bully Levi Mitchell, I think after Jake Mayer bailed them out in week number 1, has sort of, got into his groove. But I'll be honest, I still see a considerable gap between the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the Calgary Stampeders. And, the way the Bombers played against BC, I think that sort of performance will, if they can do what they did on Friday, that they did on Saturday, I think that spells another win. And I think, a somewhat comfortable win, not quite a nail biter. The Bombers have certainly had Calgary's number the last few years. The Bombers are very similar to that team that has won the last couple of Grey Cups. And as you mentioned, I mean, Zach Collaros is playing as well as he had. I mean, coming off one of his best games as a Bomber. And Zach Collaros, let's not forget, since 2019, since coming here, has lost one game where he started and they played through. I mean, there was one other game that's technically a loss. He played a couple series and they put all the backups in because they'd clinched first place. So this is a juggernaut. I'm not sure Calgary has the answers for it. I mean, it should be a great game. But if I'm only having to lay 4 points on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, the way their special teams are looking right now, certainly the defense and the offense now starting to click with the emergence of the running game earlier and what Collaros did. Pretty hard going against the Bombers because, hey, they showed who they are on Saturday night, if anyone didn't believe it.
I like the 4 points for Calgary. I mean, if this was a little bit shorter, I'd probably side with you. But I like getting, the extra point to at least take it beyond a field goal. You're right on Winnipeg special teams. Janarian Grant, man. Holy smokes. When that second one, I saw the flag partway through the return. I was like, this is coming back for sure. I've got a great call set up if I get to call a millionaire. I was like, when I saw the flag, I'm like, well, I'm not going to drop that call now. I'm going to dial it back a little bit. But I can't imagine being that Pat Hill guy who had it locked up for a mill to see that flag come out. But sucked.
I was sitting with a bunch of my pals at the bar, and we had the game cranked up on the sound, and I saw that happen, and we're like, this is $1 million. Nielsen's head might explode when this guy goes into the end zone. And then the flag was out. Like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
Those are the worst. Like, that was a totally legitimate call.
Yeah.
Like, dude, what are you doing? Like, that had no effect on the play whatsoever. Like, oh, God.
My blood pressure was like this, and then I saw that flag, and it was kind of like, ooh, I was like, damn it, it's coming back. I think we're going to get it this year, man. I think we're going to get that $1 million this year. I think it's going to happen because it doesn't be the same guy, right? It's just 2 kick returns in the game, and there's some pretty talented kick returners out there right now. Just on the Stampeders side of things here, the one thing that I think they have going for them that maybe BC didn't, and you made a very good point, Huss, right off the top. Bombers' ability against BC to establish the run early and run downhill for a team that hadn't been able to do that so far, I thought that was huge because it opened up other options, especially when the Lions started bringing their linebackers a little bit close to the line of scrimmage, and then it was Zach Collaros to Schoen and Ellingson, and he found him in some pretty decent spots with guys like Purifoy and TJ Lee in chase mode. So that made a little bit of a difference there. Calgary's offensive line has done a pretty good job so far this year. I think going into last game, I mean, I'm prepping for a lot of games each week, but I think Bo's only been sacked twice all season, and they're running the ball extremely well with Kadeem Carey. So I think the Calgary offensive line will put up a little bit more of a push than what we saw from the BC Lions. And you know what? With what they've got going there this year, you've got Reggie Bagleton, who technically from his standards hasn't done much yet this year. Kamar Jordan's been pretty good, but Malik Henry's having a hell of a season. He looks like an explosive, dynamic offensive player. So Bo Levi Mitchell's got some weapons there. I'll be very interested to see how Calgary's defense goes up against this Winnipeg offense. I don't know if Winnipeg can play as perfectly offensively again as they did against the BC Lions. I was stunned watching them pick apart the Lions defense, which I've said multiple times I think is very good, but they had TJ Lee and Sales and a bunch of those guys just seemed out of sorts the whole night. So maybe they can do the same to Calgary again, but I'm going to go with the Stamps plus the 4 points here.
Little extra vanilla on the cone on Saturday night never looked so good for the
Great memes, great vanilla memes popping up. That was,
listen,
and you know,
and by the way,
this won't surprise you. Vanilla is my favorite type of ice cream.
Well, for sure. Yeah, that's your vanilla guy. That's not surprising. But shout out to the Bombers social media team. They were ready for that. I'm not sure if you saw that post they put out afterwards, splicing the guy tasting the pure vanilla in with your touchdown calls. It was honestly, I mean, as good of a team post after a win as I can remember of any team in any sport. So hopefully they've got something good for Friday night after going to 6-0 if they can get it done.
Huge shout out to all social media groups in the CFL right now. I think everybody's banging out some pretty good content. It's been good. Touchdown Atlantic happening on Saturday, and then we go head to head on this one as well. Huss going with the Argos +3 here.
Yeah, you know what? I'll be honest. I forgot that this game was essentially a neutral site game, but honestly, that does not matter whatsoever when we're talking about the Toronto Argos, who have basically no home field advantage anyways, other than the fact that they don't have to travel. I'm going to say this about Toronto. They're coming off a bye week. I thought that they showed a lot in the second half of the game a week ago Monday against the Bombers, the way that they came back. Now, they also showed a lot of things that you had to be really concerned about. The fact that they were essentially coming apart at the seams. They were fighting each other on the sidelines. But to their credit, they got it back together, made a game, and by all intents and purposes, should have at least got that thing to overtime before Beatty missed that extra point late. I was so impressed with Andrew Harris. I mean, he still has it. I mean, that was the one thing coming out of that game. We all said, man, the Bombers miss Andrew Harris. And I'll say this about Saskatchewan. They've looked good at home so far this year. I still remember that long trip that they went out to Montreal and how bad they looked against the Alouettes. And obviously with that idiot Marino being suspended for 4 games, and I think his future in the CFL is somewhat in doubt. They've got a little bit of a hit on the defensive side of the football. But I do think that the Argos are better than their record shows. I think that this is going to be a game that they will definitely be competitive in. And I think like the Bomber game, I think it'll come right down to the final ticks of the clock in the fourth quarter. So that being said, I'm going to take the underdog. I'll take the 3 points for a close game, but I wouldn't at all be surprised if the Argos win this game outright. Maybe I still need to be a believer more in Saskatchewan, and maybe I'm showing some biases here because we know that great rivalry between Winnipeg and Sask. But I do think the Argos have it in them to compete against the Riders, and I'm going to take the points, the +3 for the double blue.
Yeah, I'm going to roll with the Riders here -3, and Marino, not having Marino in the middle of the defense, whatever. Not having Robertson on the end, that's going to hurt them a little bit. He's a phenomenal pass rusher. They also have AC Leonard on the other side, and the rest of their defense is pretty solid as well. I mean, if I'm assuming Riders fans are going to travel well for this game out east. I think it'll be more pro-Rider crowd than anything else. Yeah, so I think that'll probably help them a little bit as well.
They played at BMO.
Yeah, well, that's the same thing. I mean, a lot of places they go, they're going to travel. I just worry about the Argos a bit right now. Like the last 2 games they played, I think it was the last 2 games they played, they got crushed by BC, and Bethel Thompson got pulled and lost his mind on the sideline. And then in the last game, lost their mind on the sideline again. Like, if there's any sort of adversity here for the Argos, I'm not sure they can get this victory against Sask. So I'm going to take Sask -3 and continue to keep pace with all the big boys in the West. The top of the West, man, is looking outstanding so far this year. So, yeah, I mean, you got to win if you're going to keep pace with those guys. So I'm going to take Sask. I'm going to take them to win by hopefully more than a field goal. And I guess if it's a field goal, I'll take the push.
It's funny you mentioned the top of the West and how impressive it is, Dusty, because to finish off the schedule, we go to the bottom of the East, which is a 180.
It's a tight race.
Hey, listen, someone's got to win this. Although, wouldn't it be hilarious if these 2 teams tied and came out of it at 0-4-1, 0-3-1? Listen, there's not anything I could say that Hamilton has done this year that would warrant laying 5 points with them against any team in the league, except for the fact of the plight of the Ottawa Red Blacks post Jeremiah Masoli. And, I know they've traded for Arbuckle. You sort of made the case that Arbuckle
took first team reps today, buddy.
And that's the thing. What you're going to expect a guy to come in after 2 practices and a walkthrough and be the guy that's going to save the day. Listen, it might happen later on this season, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think Orlando Steinhauer knows that this has got to be a game that not only do they win, but they win convincingly and establish some momentum going forward for the rest of the season. A loss for the Ticats at home in this game would be absolutely devastating. I like Hamilton by at least a touchdown.
Yeah, it might not have been first team reps. I just saw the Red Blacks just tweeted out first reps for 19, so I'm not too sure what they're going to do at the quarterback position. But either way, it's certainly not stable. It's not Jeremiah Mazzoli. This is a team that's coming off losing the guy who was supposed to turn the franchise around. That's a little bit of a shell shock situation, I think, there. And, I said it earlier. I think Hamilton's better than where they are in the standings and the fact that they haven't won a football game just yet. So I think Hamilton's due to maybe cruise in this one, buddy. I'm not going to lie. The Ticats, I watch the Ticats, I see them on paper, and I go, they're not a bad football team. Dane Evans needs to look after the football. Interceptions and fumbles are absolutely killing them right now. If he just looks after the football, they probably have a couple of wins already this year. So I'm going to go Ticats. And I don't feel even too nervous about it. I know it's one of the bigger numbers of the week. I'm going to go Ticats -5 at home here.
Yeah, totally agree with you. And it's interesting that we're head-to-head on those other 3, but I think we're pretty lockstep in on this one. And we both, despite, we've had a couple of head-to-heads, which are obviously going to go one way or the other. For the most part, we've been pretty good when on the same side over the course of the last 3 weeks. I know I'm 8-3 against the spread. I'm not sure, probably 7-4 or something like that.
Yeah.
We've been right there. So it's been, I always hesitate to do too much in week 1. It's inevitably a graveyard, no matter whether it's CFL, NFL. But since then, we've got things rolling on the lock shop with some winners. So still waiting for that elusive 4-0 week, though. 3-1, 3-1, 2-1. Need to get a 0 in the loss column. And obviously with 3 head-to-head picks.
I was going to say, if somebody goes 4-0 this week, the other guy's in trouble. All right, let's slide over to the Open Championship, where I will just admit it. I'm feeling a little shameful. I'm very chalky this week. But Huss, you start us here. I mean, you got some nice names there as well.
Well, and I'll say this, and I know you're going to get to Rory McIlroy. Yeah. I would love to see Rory win. And the 11-1 that you'll see at Coolbet is the best number around. To be honest with you, I checked some other books. For the most part, these numbers at Coolbet, as they always are, considerably better than most other places. If you bet golf, you're doing yourself a disservice if you're not checking out the odds at Coolbet, because they're consistently better. That was sort of how I started playing at Coolbet originally, because of their great golf odds. So that being said, ignoring Rory as the chalk favorite, even though I would love to see him win and might have a little piece on him, I'm going to start off with John Rahm. Rombo is my guy. He wasn't great at the Scottish Open. At times he was in it, kind of had a tough weekend round. But I'm still bullish on his chance to win the Open Championship. And, St. Andrews, I mean, him being a Tiger guy, this would be an iconic victory for him, or really whoever wins, with it being the 150th championship. I think that he's got the distance, and as long as his accuracy is on, I mean, I think he'll give himself plenty of opportunities for birdies and even eagles. And I think he's now got the experience with these link-style courses in a place like St. Andrews that it won't be a detriment to him as opposed to maybe some of the younger players. So Rahm at 20-1, too good of a number to ignore. And, Cam Smith is another player that I really do like the way his game shapes up for it. I mean, when this is windy, we've seen him earlier in the season, especially with the players. I mean, what he was able to do in some windier conditions, and the way he was able to control his golf ball. And he has such a sublime touch. And that short game and the imagination to play some of these greens is going to be very important. And I think he's got that in the bag. So 30-1, I'm putting a sprinkle on Cam Smith. And then a guy we talked about last week that you had on the card, and I said I was obviously backing him too, is Tommy Fleetwood. And it's funny, the number's lower in the Open Championship than it was in the Scottish Open, but I think part of the reason was just how good he looked. I believe he finished T5 at the Scottish Open last night. And listen, Tommy's one of those players that when he gets hot, he's as good as any. He knows these courses. He knows this style of play. And he can battle through windy conditions, and you know how important that is. His putter does give me pause at times, but listen, if he can drain a few and maybe get a few to fall, I certainly think that he can contend. So Tommy Fleetwood at 40-1. I love all of these numbers, 20 for Rahm, 30 for Cam Smith, and 40 for Tommy Fleetwood. And then, adding in a couple of other wagers, I mentioned I really do like Rory to win. And, maybe I won't be betting him at the 11-1, but I'll certainly put a chunk on him to be top 10. I think that is, as safe as a golf bet can be. Rory contending in these majors. We've seen what he's done in all of the others this year. I expect no different. And a little bit of Tiger love. Listen, 70-1 on the board to win it. What an incredible story that would be. I don't know if I can back that with actual Canadian currency, but I can put a little flyer on Tiger to finish top 20. He's looked pretty good. He talked yesterday. Well, he's certainly not retiring. Making the most of one of his favorite courses in the birthplace of golf. A great 4 days from Tiger Woods would really take this event to the next level. So I'm going to jam him at plus 280 for a top 20 for the event.
Yeah, I'm going to throw Louis in there, top 20. Obviously, he's got a bunch of familiarity with the course. By all accounts, he's been playing pretty well over with the live golf stuff, and he's at plus 200 to finish top 20. So I'm going to throw him in there for a T20. And then, like I said, I'm super chalky. But, I went with these two guys are playing better than anybody else. It's as simple as that right now. Let me just roll over some of these numbers for you, starting with Rory, who's at 11-1. Since he was cut at the Texas Open, he finished second at the Masters, fifth at Wells Fargo, eighth at the PGA Championship, T18 at the Workday, won the Canadian Open, T5 US Open, T19 at the Travelers. Like, the guy has been playing this stretch here. It hasn't delivered a ton of victories, which I don't mind heading into this, because you could say he's due for one with the way that he's been playing over the last few months. He had the one at the RBC Canadian Open. So Rory's just been playing absolutely sensational. We know he has success on these types of courses. So yeah, Rory at 11-1. I couldn't get away from him. And, I locked him in and I said, I'm not going with anybody else that high. And then I couldn't. And I know Xander's, he'd be 3 in a row here if he's able to win, which would be almost unheard of. But just look at this guy lately. Like, I went back as far as, you could go back to late 2021. He's missed the cut twice and finished outside of the top 30 one other time. And that's it. Every other event, he's been in the top 30. It's insane. And in the majority of them, he's been in the top 15. His last, since missing the cut at the Masters, it's kind of like Rory, right? He missed a cut and then he went on a run. Xander won Zurich, T5 Byron Nelson, T13 PGA Championship, T18 Workday, T14 US Open, won the Travelers, won the Scottish Open. I just feel like both these guys are playing so well. When they're in the mix on Sunday, I'm going to be sitting there going, why didn't I take these guys? So I just decided to say, screw it, I'll be chalky, and I took them. So I'm on Rory at 11-1. I'm on Xander at 17-1. And then my love affair with Shane Lowry, buddy. I picked Lowry at other courses where maybe I shouldn't have taken Lowry, but he won at a different course, but he won in 2019 and defended relatively well 2 years later in 2021 as well. So I'm going to ride with Shane Lowry one more time here at 22-1.
Love it. And I will say this wasn't available when we were making our picks yesterday. I am looking just at a little bit of line movement right now. John Rahm's actually up to 21, and Cam Smith has fallen to 28 from 30. But we also have the make the cut numbers right now. Tiger Woods minus 147 to make the cut. I might be we're going to the track tonight. Depending on how much of this comes through, there might be a large Tiger make the cut wager, because I certainly think that he'll be playing.
I love how your wagers for the Open Championship depend on how the track goes tonight. You're the best, buddy.
There might be more of a surplus depending on how things
That's
go.
True.
Now we got a bunch of winners. We did a pick six contest with our friends at Assiniboia Downs, the track here, that are sponsors of ours on Winnipeg Sports Talk. So we've got them going up, big prime rib buffet tonight, bringing the winners in, and then we'll be in the winner's circle after race 3.
Oh, no way.
With the horse and everything. Oh yeah, it'll be some great social media content for.
Is there any way you can put Remus up on top of the horse?
The jockey himself,
Yeah.
Michael Remus. I don't
God,
know.
I'd love
I'll,
to see that.
I'll talk to Darren Dunn and see if we can make that. That would be
that'd be pretty rare for those photos. But hey, so we've got Open Championship. We hit CFL, but NHL free agency, buddy. Huge day on Wednesday, and Patty from Coolbet was texting us yesterday saying all the free agent odds are up, and I tweeted out the Jack Campbell at plus 100. 20 minutes later, it was at minus 110, and it just kept going. It now sits at minus 333. So, it's been bet to that point, but I think everybody is also assuming that it's going to happen. Similar with Darcy Kemper and Washington, so there's not a ton of value there anymore. But Huss, there's like 7 or 8 different markets here. Like, what other places are you looking at where you see some value?
I'm just amazed that there can be so much line movement when you're not allowed to talk to free agents until tomorrow at noon. Can I get an odd on a tampering charge in the National Hockey League? Like, what's the number on that? It is pretty funny right now. I mean, to me, obviously, the most fascinating one is Johnny Gaudreau. We've heard about the money that is on the table from Calgary, and I see Frank Saravelli just in the last few minutes saying he feels that the Flames might have upped the offer to a cool $10 million on an 8-year deal. Calgary's sitting there at plus 350. I mean, the timing right now, if you think that might be like, is he getting more than $80 million on the open market? No. I mean, I'll say this, and Frank mentioned this. If he doesn't go to Calgary, it certainly isn't about money. They've stepped up for a guy that was Hart Trophy worthy last year and, paid him certainly what he's worth or offered him what he's worth. But I can't help but look at that number. Philly's at even money. I don't know if Philly has any idea what the hell they're doing. And with the moves that they've made, I don't even know that they have the cap space to get near that number, at least as it stands right now, even with the buyout of Oscar Lindblom. And the New Jersey Devils probably could, but they only have half a roster right now. I mean, they need to fill out a number of other spots. So to me, Calgary sort of makes the most sense. And I know a lot of people are thinking that he's as good as gone because we are here now. Maybe they've just been slow playing it, and there's some value at plus 350. Evgeny Malkin's fascinating. Pittsburgh is the favorite at minus 120. He said that he is testing free agency. But just of the other teams that are out there, nothing really seems to make sense. Anaheim, the Kraken at 6-1. Rangers and Dallas at 7. The one that does kind of stick out, which would be wild, is the Washington Capitals. Nick Backstrom is going to be probably on the shelf for potentially even the entire year. We're not sure how he'll come back from this surgery. They've got a huge hole at center. Malkin and Ovi playing together. I mean, I know it sounds like they're already in the mix on Kemper.
I'd have some time for that, buddy. That'd be cool.
I would too, and I've got some time for that at 7-1. If of the other teams that are out there. So to me, Malkin at 7-1, Johnny Gaudreau, Calgary at plus 350, and I'll put this one to you. What do you think about Evander Kane? Because Kane right now is plus 175 for the Oilers, Caps at plus 275, Calgary at 3-1. And I guess the Calgary is assuming that if Johnny Gaudreau doesn't re-sign, they'll have a bunch of money and maybe they'll go and try and grab Kane from their arch rivals north.
Yeah, I don't know what I would do with that Evander Kane one right now, buddy. Like, I don't think the Oilers are going to be willing to go much higher than some of the rumored numbers out there right now. Like, I think they want to go at the most like 3 years, $5 million. Saravalli was saying at the draft that he's looking for like $40 to $50 million, and I just don't know how many teams are going to be willing to commit that long term for him. I don't think it would make sense. So, I mean, if you want to bet the Oilers at plus 175, your thought process here is that there's no other market for him. And he goes, well, go back to Edmonton on a little bit of a shorter term deal, try to cash in, try to prove that I'm a good boy, and then maybe get a deal after that. But he's 30 years old, so I don't know if he has time to do that. So I'm probably staying away from the Evander Kane one. The other two that are very interesting to me, Nazim Cadre, we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier on. Detroit plus 150, the Rangers plus 150. And I don't know if the Rangers, if Kadri's looking for 8.5, and Drager said, he's going to approach free agency essentially like anybody should approach free agency. He's going to listen to all the offers and then figure out where he wants to go. Maybe the Rangers find a way to get it done. But if you're Nazim Kadri, and I guess if it's just a huge payday, you want to go to Detroit, go to Detroit. But for guys like Nazim Kadri just won a cup, so maybe it's a little bit different. But for Claude Giroux is the other one that I find very interesting because the Oilers have been linked to Claude Giroux, and they're at plus 450 right now. And if they can't get Evander Kane, buddy, I think I think they're going to heavily pursue Claude Giroux. So you'll probably get a little Oilers sprinkle on Giroux at plus 450 from me. The Ottawa Senators are minus 110, and there's not many guys right now that have like that minus odds to go to a market. And I know Giroux, I mean, the home in Ottawa and everything like that. But, I mean, you don't have a Stanley Cup yet. This is your last chance to sign somewhere to go get one. Nothing against Ottawa, but they're not going to do it for you. I'd be pretty fascinated. I mean, I almost respect him to just want to settle into a good life in Ottawa with a boatload of money and make his family happy. Good for you. But I just have to sense that there's got to be a thought process there from Giroux that he still wants to end up somewhere and take a run at a cup here.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, I think Ottawa's chances of being better are greatly increased. I love the DeBrincat deal. I think Pierre Dorion has maybe been the MVP of GM so far over the past few weeks. But if you're a guy that plays on the wing and the money's somewhat the same or in the ballpark, how can you turn down an opportunity to play with Connor McDavid? I mean, honestly, and I think we saw what happened to Evander last year, the greatest rehab stint in NHL history. And I think Giroux, I mean, not only do you think that Edmonton will be a team that will have a chance to contend to actually win, I mean, that's got to be a dream come true for a player to be able to presumably have the opportunity to play with one of the best that's ever done it right now. So Edmonton's a very interesting team in free agency. I'll tell you who's also interesting is the Leafs. I still can't wrap my head around what they've done. I thought they did a good job to get rid of the Mrazek contract, and then they jump on Matt Murray at just south of $5 million a year. I mean, wow.
Yeah, that was I'm not too sure, man, because Matt Murray's not going to take a lot of shit from Maple Leafs media if things aren't going well. Like, that's just I mentioned it yesterday on Two Guys on Goalie. I said, what's wrong here with Jack Campbell? If the Leafs are moving on from Campbell, not willing to pay Jack Campbell, but are going out and taking Matt Murray off of Ottawa. Like, imagine somehow having Pierre Dorion look like the good guy on this side of things. Like, it just blows my mind. Very interesting strategy from the Toronto Maple Leafs. So, yes, tomorrow's going to be great.
Dubas has a connection with him back as a former Sioux guy. So, I mean, sometimes, those personal relationships mean something. And hey, Matt Murray does have 2 cup rings. I mean, let's not forget that he had done that, but that's 5 years ago. And the last few years haven't gone very well. The only thing I can think of is that they've got confidence that he can bounce back and help them win games next year. And the other side of things is they are not prepared to give Jack Campbell the term that he wants. I mean, they're bringing him on for 2 years as opposed to probably at least a 5-year commitment that it's going to take Jack Campbell. But it is funny. I mean, 2 teams like the Oilers and the Leafs that have spent so much money on some of the best and most talented players in the game are both scrambling to try to fill the most important position on the ice. And that, of course, is the last line of defense.
All right, before we wrap up another episode of The Lock Shop, of course, enjoy free agency, everybody. But Huss, what's coming up on Winnipeg Sports Talk, man?
We have an absolutely massive show today. We are going to be getting ready for free agency with Greg Wyshynski of ESPN. Scott Wheeler from The Athletic is going to jump on and give us a little bit of a report card on what the Jets and the rest of the league did at the draft. Then right after that, we're going to welcome in the Jets' first-round pick, Rutger McGroarty, who everyone's pumped to hear from for the first time on the program, and then Mike McIntyre from the Winnipeg Free Press after that. So we are going to be packed for a couple hours, both focusing on the Jets and everything else around the league. For those of you that are watching us live on Twitter right now, jump on over to YouTube. It's Winnipeg Sports Talk. Hit the red subscribe button. We'll be live at 1 p.m. as we are every weekday, Monday to Friday.
Check it out. Excellent show. And once again, thank you very much for watching the Lock Shop, supporting the Lock Shop. Follow us on Twitter at Lock Shop Bets, and subscribe on all your podcasting platforms so you never miss an episode. 3 games head-to-head in the Canadian Football League this week, buddy. I'm looking forward to it. It should be good, and maybe I'll see you this weekend.
Looking forward to it. Have a great call. Keep up the great work, and I'm looking forward to it. Battle of the Unbeatens. You're welcome to come and do a little Joey Chestnut operation in the parking lot at our tailgate before as well if you need, Dusty.